before we begin learning a chapter, I'm going to read the chapter in Hebrew, and then I'll make a mishaberach. Anyone who has any names of sick people to add in the mishaberach, you're able to add. Just take yourselves off of mute and tell me when I say the mishaberach. So before I start, I'd like to say today's class is in honor of my father-in-law's 10th yahrzeit. My wife's father's 10th yahrzeit is today. Reb Chaim Reb Yisrael, today's class is in his memory. His neshama should have an aliyah. So I'll say the first chapter of Psalms, and then I'll read a mishaberach, blessing for the sick, and then we'll learn a few verses. Ashrei ha'isha asher lo yalach b'asas rishov v'derech hatam lo yamad v'meishav leitzin lo yoshav ki im b'seres harin echev sev v'sarasa yega yemim v'loyla v'yikeshav Ava Yiseinu Avram Yisuf Yaacov Meishar David Shlomo Yevarech v'Rabbi Zachela v'Zacheles David Bas Miriam Chava Bas Esther Alter Shlomo ben Chava Benjamin Bas Bracha. Any names? Allah Chazikam Lacha Yesef Yishlach Lahem Meheir Rafo Shleim Min HaShamayim L'Ramacha V'Ram Shesag Yidei M'Sak Shachal Yisrael Rafo Sanafesh Rafo Sagof Hashem Agos Van Korev V'Neimar Amen. Refuah Shalema to all those that need it from all sicknesses. It starts off as follows: Ashrei ha'ish Asher lo holach ba'atzas rishom v'derech hatom lo omad. It speaks about the success of a person. Ashrei ha'ish Asher lo holach ba'atzas rishom v'derech hatom lo omad. The traits that make a person praiseworthy is that he does not follow the ideas or the conduct of wicked people, and he does not stand in the path of sinners. In other words, he avoids being in their company even for a short while. He stays away from bad influences. That's what it means. So this chapter, my friends, was composed by King David. I mentioned to you in the past that there were 10 people that composed different chapters. This chapter was composed by King David himself, praising people who stay away from evil, influences. It's very interesting. A life, when a person, he spends his life doing three things. He's either standing, he's either walking, or he's either sitting. Three things he's doing his whole life: standing, walking, sitting. He's standing near people, he's walking by people, near people, and he's sitting near people. Says David HaMelech, stay away from not such good influences. Stay away, don't stand with them, don't walk with them, don't sit with them. Because once the influences sink in, it's hard to take out. Be your own man. Don't be one who influences David HaMelech. Be one who can influence people for the good. Do not get influenced for the bad. Do not follow the Rishoim. Do not follow wicked advice. And he says, "Overderech hatam le'oma," do not stand with the wicked. And the last words of the first verse is, "Uvemoshav leitzim lo yoshav." Do not sit in the company of those who make fun of others, who scoff others. This is number one thing to stay away from. Why do we hang around? Do you ever think about it? Why do we hang around people of bad influence? Why do we hang around people who are really wannabes? Why do we hang around people who try to make their voices heard? There are people whose voices are heard. There are people whose voices they want to make heard. Why? Our problem is, and this goes on by many people today, that we feel very insecure. We feel so insecure, we look to someone to hang on to. We feel uncomfortable sometimes with our own opinions, or we feel scared to voice our own opinions. So what do? We look for people to be the voices, to do the influencing. And many times we're influenced to the bad, we're influenced not so good. Even by a Moshav Leitzim, we get around a group sitting around making fun of the rabbis, making fun of the leaders of the generation, because we think we know better. Says David HaMelech, you know what's real success? Real success is a man who can walk, who can stand, who can sit on his own. He is his own man. And not being influenced, but he is the one who influences. Then he says as follows, Ki im bisoras, verse number 2. Ki im bisoras Hashem chefso uvisoraso yege yomam v'layla. The next verse is, he is constantly working and dealing with Torah, with Hashem's Torah, uvisaraso, and with his Torah, yehege, he will work, which we're talking about meditating, yomam v'layla, day and night. Before I go a little further to explain this, I want to go back one drop about influence. How strong people's influence can be. It just hit me now. There is a Zohar. The Zohar was written by Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai. Rabbi Shimon, the son of Yochai, in the time of the Gemara, the Mishnah and Gemara. The Zohar, we know, is the foundation of Kabbalah teachings, of Jewish mysticism. And it says as follows, when a woman is pregnant, she should be careful not only what she eats. All right, the famous saying is, you got to be careful what you eat, because you got to be eating healthy, because you're eating for two. But not only you should be careful what you eat, but you should be careful what you hear, what you speak. You should be careful, even, says the Zohar, to the music that she listens to, she should be careful. Why? Says the Holy Zohar, depending, when a pregnant woman goes to certain places and listens to certain things and certain music, that has an influence on the embryo. That's how strong influence can be. That not only do we listen to the music to influence us, but it can influence the embryo, the baby inside of the woman too, inside of the woman's womb. So we see, we have to be very careful. Who are the people that we learn from? Who are the people that we walk with, that we stand with, that we sit with, even just to walk by such people? Who are these people? Are they good influence? Are they bad influence? Or even could they be a bad influence? Says David HaMelech, we got to be very careful. Interesting, in the second verse it says, a person should desire to spend all his time with God's Torah, and he occupies himself with his Torah every moment of the day. So first of all, a few questions here. Why does it first call the Torah God's Torah? Ki im besoras Hashem. It's the Torah of Hashem. Why does David HaMelech, King David, first call it God's Torah? And then he says, Uvisaraso, and in his Torah, Yege Yoma V'Layla. He should make it day and night. He should meditate it. Number one. Number two, come on. How many people can be involved with Torah day and night? Maybe in the time of the great sages and the time of Mishnah and the time of Gemara, they were able to do that. But in our day and age, how many of us are really able to sit and learn and be involved in Torah day and night? So those are a few questions that I would like to answer. So first of all, as follows. When a person starts learning Torah, when a person listens to a lecture, when a person gets inspired, when a person hears something he or she enjoys, Ki im besoras Hashem chefso, they're listening to a lecture really to God's wisdom. And they're taking God's wisdom and it's coming into their wisdom. When a person gets inspired from a sermon, when a person gets inspired from a story about the prophets, the rabbi's sermon, whatever it may be, we are representing God. So really we're speaking of God's wisdom, which is coming into our wisdom. But now that we got inspired, what do we do with that inspiration? Does it remain separate from us, which means only our intellect? We're only, it's nice, it's a nice book. It's a nice coffee table conversation, the Torah. So it remains God's Torah. Or does this Torah become Torah, our own Torah? Do we make it ours? Do we internalize it? Do we take that inspiration that we got inspired Shabbos, that we got inspired on the holidays, that we got inspired on Simchat Torah, that we get inspired when we see a good vart in the Torah, in a book? Do we take that and internalize it? Are we internalizing Yiddishkeit, in other words? Oh yeah, it's a nice thing, it's a social thing. Shabbos is social, but when we leave shul on Shabbat, or we leave shul in the morning, you know what? We heard what the rabbi said, but it just stayed in shul. It stayed there, and that's where it remains. Or do we take it with us? In other words, when we open up a chumash, this is first becomes God's Torah. It's God's. Now it's up to us to make it ours. And what does it mean to make it ours, to internalize it? And what does it mean to learn Torah day and night? It doesn't only mean to sit and learn Torah 24/7 with a tallis over our head, daven, learn Torah and forget about the world. No, it doesn't mean that. It means, how do we make it ours? And how are we involved in Yiddishkeit and in Torah 24/7, Yom V'Layla, day and night? By constantly being in a state of mind. Our state of mind can be constantly involved with the Yiddishkeit and the Torah. In other words, when I leave the shul, does that God that was with me in the shul that I davened to, does he go with me on the streets? Or do I leave him there and now I become a different person completely? Do I act one way in the winter and a different way in the summer? Do I dress differently? Do I act differently? Or no? No matter how I work, no matter in the store, no matter in the office, no matter in the synagogue, no matter at my meal, at my table, is everything godly, divine? Or no? God is only in certain places. Says David HaMelech, the success of a person is to constantly be in a state of being divine, godly. You don't necessarily have to daven 24/7. You don't necessarily have to learn 24/7. But now that we heard the rabbi's class on Sunday, does it just stay on Zoom till the next Sunday? Or do I internalize it? And do I take it with me when I go off Zoom, and when I go to the store, and when I go to the office, and when I go work out, when I go to exercise, when I go to eat? Everything has to be with a state of mind of God. And that's called internalizing Yiddishkeit. Not only to talk the talk and to walk the walk, but to live the life. To live it. And that's what it means to be involved in Torah day and night. Torah doesn't only remain in my office. Torah doesn't only remain in the shul. Torah doesn't only remain on Shabbat. There's something very important to remember. And by the way we're talking about influence, right? We're talking about influencing. The way we live, our values, that's what we're giving over to our future generations. That's what we leave on this world. That's what we leave with our friends, with our neighbors, with our relatives. That is how we are remembered from the influence that we left. Is it an influence that, we said one way and we did something else? Or was it an influence of Yiddishkeit being not only part of us, but inside of us, living that Yiddishkeit, talking that Yiddishkeit, walking and breathing that Yiddishkeit? Let's go a little further. Verse 3, Pasuk Gimel, verse 3. Such a person like that, says King David, V'haya ke'etz shasol al palgei mayim. Such a person will be rewarded with a life with goodness. He will be like a tree planted. V'hayu ke'etz. He will be like a tree shasol planted al palgei mayim, by the streams of water. Asher piryai yitem be'itai, whose fruit are produced in the proper season. V'aleu layibal, and the leaves never wither. V'chol asher yaseh yatzliach, and everything that he'll do will be successful. A person who is sincere, a person who is real, a person who is a person that, let's say in English they say, you see what you get what you see. That's him. He's real. She is real. That is a person who's like a tree, says King David, by the stream of water. He'll always be satisfied because the tree always gets the water, and the tree will always grow the fruit in the proper time because it's right by the stream of water. That tree will constantly be real, as they say, really satisfied. And that's talking about a person satisfied with life. Are we always envious? Are we always looking at the other side? Or are we keeping the saying as Ezo Osher, who is rich, Hasameach bechelkai, someone who is satisfied with his lot in life? How many people are there out there who are not satisfied with their lot in life? They wake up in the morning and their first thing is, how can we outdo our neighbor? How can we live like the Joneses live? How can we have what he does? And how many of us wake up in the morning instead saying, thank you Hashem for what I have. Thank you for my health. Thank you for my house. Thank you for everything I own. Thank you for the clothes on my back. That is like the tree that is constantly satisfied with the water that is planted by the stream of water. Why? It's constantly satisfied. And therefore its fruits are always successful. They're always growing in the proper time. Why? Because that tree is always satisfied. How many of us can really say, my dear friends, that we're really, really satisfied, that we have what we need, and everything else is just brownie points? The truth of the matter is, once we have, and we learned about this the hard way recently, once we have good health, and everyone in the family is healthy, then, my friends, we have what we need. We have everything we need. Then everything else is brownie points. People are always looking and thinking, it's always greener on the other side. Till they get to the other side, and what happens? It's greener on the next side, and it's greener on the next side, and they're never happy. And they're always looking to outdo somebody and to cheat somebody. I mentioned last night, it's like there's a saying that life, and many people go with this philosophy in life. I've met recently many, many people like this. Life is like a marathon, they say. Making it to the starting point, to the goal, it's not only making it, it's making it first. And while we're making it first, we keep on running. And you keep on running and running. And if you want to make it first, it doesn't matter who's in front of you. It doesn't matter who you knock over. It doesn't matter who you cheat and who you steal from. As long as we get there. Says David HaMelech, such a person is the opposite of success. Such a person is the opposite of what he has to do. And that's why, and I'll conclude with this for today, and that's why the first word of this chapter is Ashrei. Ashrei is plural. The two dots and the yud at the end are plural. Ashrei. It's not only you're praiseworthy really, for just one good deed. Yeah, it's good to do a good deed, and it's good to do two good deeds. But Ashrei means that we're always, in plural, we're always consistent in our belief. We're always consistent in Yiddishkeit. We're always consistent in doing the good deeds. And that's why it says Ashrei. Let's all be consistent. Consistent in being happy. Consistent. Once we're consistent in being happy, we have the world. How many people are out there that have everything that they need to sit on top of the world and they can't be happy? They're miserable. And if they don't have something to be miserable about, they're going to find something because that makes them happy. And how many people, on the other hand, they don't have what the neighbor has, and yet they're 10 times happier, and yet they're 10 times more content with their lifestyle. Why? Because they're always involved in goodness. It's consistent. Their happiness is consistent. Their joy is consistent. Their thanking God is consistent. Their thanking God is not only in shul. Their thanking God is not only in the office. They're constantly saying, thank you, Hashem, for everything I have. Ashrei Ish. Praiseworthy is such a man who's constantly happy, stays away from the wrong influence, stays away from everyone, bad neighbors. We say in the morning a prayer. I bet some of you didn't even know this. We say in the morning prayers, right after Birchas HaShachar, our blessings. We say, God, please fulfill your will. May it be your will that you keep us away from a bad neighbor and a bad friend and bad advice. So we have a whole list of bad things we want to stay away from. Let's be consistent, and instead of getting influenced in the wrong way, let's be the ones who influence in the right way. And what is the right way? The right way is being a mensch, keeping the Torah. No one's saying to put on a black hat. No one's saying to become who knows what religious. We're talking about one thing is being a mensch, being honest, being happy, going in the way of the Torah. It doesn't matter how we dress or what we do. Going in the Torah way. There's only one Torah way. There's only one God. And through that, Ashrei Ish, says David HaMelech, will be praiseworthy to have a good life, a happy life. I want to wish everyone a great week, a good Tavach, Shavua Tov to all of you. If I can be of help to anybody, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I'm only a phone call away. And I think that's the ad, reach out and touch someone. So reach out and touch your rabbi because he's right here, only a phone call away.